morning, everyone. Welcome to Video Scores Volume 1. Today we're going to take a look at question 67-68 by the group Chicago. And this song was on their first album, and we are all just like, wow, have you heard this? Have you heard this? It was their very first album. They were called Chicago Transit Authority, but after their first album was a success, they were threatened to be sued by the Chicago Transit Authority in Chicago, so they shortened their name to Chicago. And I think their name before that was, before they were famous, was The Next Big Thing or something like that. Anyway, and their first, three albums, well, their first 5 albums were very artsy, even up to their 6th album. And a lot of my younger friends know them as doing the Pretty Ballads, which was all great, but, more pop, top 40 pop-ish, with the Peter Cetera ballads and all that stuff. But in their first, I wore out their first 3 albums. And then their 4th album was a live set of 4 albums in one box. And their 5th album was great. I saw them after their 3rd album and after their 5th album. Me and my brother, both times I think we drove up to Portland to see them. And we're standing again right in front, as close as we could, right in front of the band. And the 5th album, there was a lot of more odd meter. They were playing around with some 7/8 and some 5/4 and that sort of thing. Really good songs, great arrangements. James Pankow, their trombone player, wrote I know he wrote this a horn arrangement. So this is a great tune. I thought I would. They break some rules in this thing. They had 3 horns, trumpet, tenor, and trombone, and what a great group. And they're still doing it. Them and Earth, Wind & Fire, they're still out doing it. So anyway, let's take a look at question 67-68. Take it away, my man. There's some really interesting stuff in here. I like the way they treat their 3 horns. They have trumpet, sax, and trombone. And they really, it's almost like a mini orchestra because they don't all play in tandem all the time. They will, they divide them up. And we'll see in this chart how they do that. They will have different horns play little lines and within the mix of the 3. And it's really great. So the start of this tune, it's all these, a lot of short 8th notes. And you'll notice in this first couple of bars, the chord progression is F sharp minor, G sharp minor, D to A. And in this first voicing, the top note being a C sharp, they go down, the C sharp is the 5th, the A is the 3rd, and then they added, only on the intro, or in this first 3 bars, or 2 bars rather, they added they overdubbed a second tenor part. So there's 2 tenors with the A, and then the octave down to the C sharp, and then the trombone down here is playing the root. And then we go up to the second note, which is the second note of the chord is on an octave in G sharp, which is a passing chord for the F sharp. We're basically in the key of, for this part, this tune changes key a lot. So we're pretty much in the key of E here with 4 sharps, and then here on the 4th beat they're in octaves. Everybody's in octaves, I assume. Well, we'll listen to it in a minute, but the tenor and the trumpet have the top note and the trombone have the bottom note. Or probably one of the tenors has this with the trumpet and one of the tenors has this with the trombone. That's the way I would do it. And then onto the second bar, the chord is D to A. So here we have a D block voicing. The top note is a D, A, F sharp, and then the trombone has the D. And then we're down to the note is a C sharp. These 2 middle voicings, now usually I talk about not doing this kind of thing, but they break a lot of rules in this arrangement. As far as jazz, I mean, this is a contemporary, well, at the time it was contemporary, pop tune So they kind of do a lot of, if you notice, this third voicing here is playing a lot of F sharps right in a row and then drops down to an E to accommodate the A chord here. But here the trumpet's just going down the scale and back up to the C sharp, and the first tenor is playing an A, drops down to a G sharp and back up to an A again. This is kind of a passing, if you will. So that's those two bars. Now we change key again in the third bar. It goes to a B minor chord to a C diminished. Now I've talked about in the ebooks about swapping out diminished chords, but that's, again, this is a contemporary pop tunes, and diminished chords are fine in things like bossa nova, pop tunes, not so much in jazz standards, where we want to change them to dominant chords. But in this case, it's a C diminished, and it's pretty much all in octaves here. This whole bar is in octaves. This B is the same B as this, so they're in single octaves all the way through, except for the last note of the bar, which is a long note on beat 4. The trumpet plays the 5th, the sax plays the 7th, and the trombone plays the 3rd. And then here, the trumpet plays the F, and there's A and a D. And then they do this really nice thing where they harmonically move down in half steps. Sus, C sharp sus to C sharp, C sus to C, B sus, and just down in half steps till they get to the B flat here, and then they jump in whole steps, then half steps. So they don't do an A, they skip from B flat to A, they skip a whole step and then down a half step. So on the C sharp chord, they just spell out a C sharp sus in a block voicing. The trumpet has a C sharp, tenor sax has the G sharp, and the trombone has the F sharp. And then same thing here, and then they go to suspend, then they go to resolve the suspension with a regular just C sharp major triad right here. And they do the same thing. They just repeat this idea, down a half step in C, down a half step in B, half step in B flat. But here we notice it's on the B flat, it's a B flat sus, B flat 7 sus. So they also do something a little different. The melody's in the root is in the melody, and typically in a jazz voicing on a B flat 7 chord, the old style would be B flat and then you would go down to a G, which would be your 13th. We've talked about that before. But here, they go down a whole step. So between our trumpet and our tenor, there's a whole step right here. And then the trombone is playing the sus4, and then the sus4, and then the trombone resolves down to the major third, but the trumpet and tenor hold the B flat, A flat interval, the whole step interval. They move down a whole step and they do the same thing over the A flat with this whole step interval at the top. So I've seen that before. That probably with the three voices works. Well, you'll hear that it does. Now a half step would be a totally different deal. And then here, finally, at the end of the phrase, they finally resolve on a G7 sus to a G7, and the trombone plays the D all the way through, and then on the sus, the tenor sax plays the 7th degree all the way through, and then the trumpet is playing the sus4 to the 3, 2, up to the 4, 4, down, and then resolves here, like a little choral thing. He does a just like they did before with the 2, right in here, the B flat, the C sharp back up to the D sharp. And then I love this. You never see this in pop music, is a retard. How often do you see that in pop music? I have never. This is probably the only band I can remember right now that has ever done a retard. So, and it's so sweet when they do it. So let's listen to the intro. What an intro, big fanfare and all that. James Pankow, the trombone player, wrote a lot of their horn arrangements, so I assume he wrote this one too. Now I must say, I got this horn arrangement out of Hal Leonard. I might have mentioned this in the other videos. Hal Leonard is a guy who publishes music books, and he's got a book called Chicago Volume 1 with some of their arrangements in it. And so I took this arrangement out of that book. They had it all transposed score, so I combined all the horns into two staves in concert pitch so that we could see exactly what was going on. So if some of you folks out there that have amazing eardrums, here's something different, let me know. I'd love to, because I've found one or two mistakes. So, and some of it's a little unorthodox in the voicings. And what's cool about this arrangement too is that there's a lot of independent movement going on. Like you'll see here in bar 2, the trombone players doing some moving independently of the trumpet and tenor here as well. So here in the first verse, we have a nice overlap. In the coming out of the intro here, we have these dotted eighths and this beautiful retard, and then we land on the downbeat of letter A with these quarter notes in a block voicing held long. They're long quarter notes. So it's just starting on C, it's just a block voicing of a C triad, okay? Then in bar 2, over a C over G chord, the trumpet player is playing an A, goes up to a B, A, G, and then we move on to an F chord. And notice that the tenor sax is down here a sixth below, and then he moves up to the to an E here, and then they both play the G, and then they split. And the trombone here plays the third of the C chord, and then down to the root and back up the scale to the F here for the F chord. Now, here's something interesting. This C, middle C here is below this E here that the trombone playing is basically the first line of the treble clef for all you folks out there that are just getting your reading chops together. So this middle C here that he's playing is the same ledger line as the one below this E right here, this ledger line. So for a few beats, the trombone player is above the tenor. Well, for these two, for these, and then he comes down to the C and works his way back up. So there's a lot of interesting kind of classical contrapuntalism, if you will, going on. And then into bar 4 of A, it's a G sus to a G. So the trumpet's playing the sus 4 down to the major third, second, major third, root, and walks back up to the major third, while the tenor just pedals the G, and the trombone pedals the D below that, and then does this 16th riff climbing up to this E for the next for the downbeat of bar 5, yes, which is a C triad. So a lot of independent movement going on. All the eighths in this is very classical, so it's but da 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 da, very short. When we hit the F here, These 4 bars is basically the same as these 4 bars. And notice that on the F chord, when the tenor plays the C to the D, I talk about chordal resolutions, where how chords resolve and that sort of thing. So that's where this comes in handy, because he's basically going from 5 to 6. And then bar 8, again, they're doing the sus over the G. And basically the only one that's moving here is the trumpet up over. And these guys are just, playing, holding down, playing a rhythm figure with the root in the 5th. Okay? So let's listen to that, those first 8 bars. Okay, great. Peter Cetera is sounding good. What a great singer. Anyway, so letter B. Now we're in the second half of the verse. So I'm calling it letter B. And we end up on the C chord again. Here we are, the same block voicing with C on top of the 3 horns. Chord progression's a little different now. And we do, here they just have octaves on a long quarter here over the F7 over E flat. So they're playing, basically, they're just playing an interval because the trumpet's playing the A, and both these E flats are the same note. And down here, they're in octaves, and then here, the trombone and the trumpet are still in octaves, but the sax breaks into a 6th interval down from the trumpet right here. F. So the trumpet's playing in a D, F, 6 down, and then the C, and the E is the 6 down from the C. And the same thing here, pretty much. The chord is D, so they do a little arpeggio. They're arpeggio. 1 da 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 da, and then here again at the 4 and they do a little. The trumpet and trombone are in octaves. Tenor sax is in 6 down from. So you can be creative with your voicings. And again, I say this all the time. If it sounds good and this record sounds fabulous, then go with it. Here's a downbeat. The 5th bar of letter B is a G minor chord. Trombone and trumpet are in octaves, and then the tenor has the B flat, the minor 3rd. Over the E flat chord, we have, it's just E flat triads all the way up. Trumpet has the G, E flat, B flat, up to the B flat, G, E flat, B flat, G. So it's just 3 triads just going right up, arpeggiating an E flat chord. The trumpet's arpeggiating an E flat chord, and everybody's just right underneath them, keeping it a closed block voicing. Okay? Nobody played. They give us a break in bar 7 and 8 of letter B, which is nice. You got to have some breathing room, because right here at the end, they're going to play 1 da 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 da, up a minor 3rd, ba da 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 da, and I love the tenor going ba da da do 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 da da do do da. 1, 2, da-da-do-do-da-da-do-do-da, in there. It's nice. They treat, it's almost like they're treating just the 3 horns as like a whole orchestra. The only difference here would be you'd have many more people playing these notes. But it's really good how they do this. It's really nice. It keeps these 16ths, keep it moving. They could have had everybody just play the long quarters, but they kept everybody moving. And so then the chords here under the G and the B flat, when they resolve, are almost like a drop 2 with a 3-part voicing. So we have B, the major 3rd. We took the next note down would be G. We dropped it down an octave, okay, and then went to the D. And the same thing here. The B flat, the 2nd note of the voicing is dropped down. So those are like a drop 2, and that's a nice open voicing. Sounds really nice and kind of classical sounding, okay. Let's hear that section.
I'd like to know, can you tell me, please don't tell me? It really doesn't matter anyhow. It's just that the thought of us so happy appears in my mind as a beautifully mysterious thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What's your image in my mind?
So the second verse is identical to the first verse, the horn arrangement. So a lot of times in the second verse they'll add an element, but this time there was nothing in the horns anyway. And so now we're in the soli, and Chicago was very famous for their horn solis. This was their kind of their signature arrangement idea. And so the top of the horn arrangements, we transition out of this harmonically. It's B flat sus to B flat, and then we stay on the B flat and do the A flat over B flat, which is in a way a B flat sus, except we have this G flat in the trombone. So this first voicing, here again we have the whole step at the top, C natural down to a B flat, trumpets to C, the tenor's the B flat, and then right down here, this just a third below this B flat is this G flat for the trombone. So it's a very tight voicing. And then here, the trumpet is playing the 16th riff, basically in E flat. And the tenor sax is voiced down a sixth all the way through here, and then below the tenor sax is the trombone, which is voiced down a fifth. So basically what it is, it's like a drop 2 voicing where they've done an A flat triad here, C, A flat, the next voice would be A flat, but they dropped it down an octave and then went to the E flat. So that voicing just carries on for all these notes. Here they do a little half step passing chord, and then up to the B flat, and it continues on this 6th idea all the way down. And then what I like is this little pickup here, 3 and a 4 and a, the trumpet plays this alone, which is really nice. Sometimes it's nice to do that. They could have had all the horns play this 16th. They could have just continued this 6th, this drop 2 voicing all the way through here, but the trumpet plays this solo, which is really nice. And then we're into the same kind of, it's the same riff. Is it the same? Not really. No, it's not. But it's close. Same, rhythmically the same. And then here they do a nice thing. We're continuing on this B flat sus to B flat idea. F minor over B flat is kind of a sus. It's 5 in the key of E flat. And so they're in octaves here, and then here on the last 16th of 2, they break into, it's octaves for this is, again, the trombone isn't always the lowest voicing. It's kind of flip-flopping with the tenor sax. In this instance here, the trumpet is playing F, A, and so is the tenor sax down an octave, and then the trombone is playing, fifths. He's got the F, the C, so we're in fifths here, and then the trumpet and the tenor are in octaves, and then the trombone does 1, 2, 3, which is really nice, all by himself, and then him and the trumpet and the sax player play this. This is the flat 7 I mean the major seventh of the G major seventh chord. See how the harmony's changing? We're in E flat, we're in 3 flats pretty much here. And then all of a sudden we've modulated down to G major, which is 1 sharp. Here we have the F sharp here, and here we have the F sharp. So it's 1 sharp. And here we have the G to the A minor chord, and so the tenor and the trombone are playing in thirds. Here's the 5th and the major 7th. Here they're playing in thirds. The flat 7 for the A minor and the 5th. And then the trumpet is continuing, again, plays by himself. And they repeat that, repeat it. See how it's nice to repeat stuff. You know, they get into this, basically these bars up here are the same as the first 4 bars. So they just repeated the 4 bars. And then we've done this idea, and now we're down into, we're repeating this rhythm here with the trumpet doing the ba-da-da-da-da, ba-da, repeating over and over again. Ba-ba-da-da-ba-da, 3, ba-da-da-da-da-da, and they move on to this idea again. Okay, let's play the soli up until letter G. Let's do that. Let's start at letter E and play it up to letter G. Let's do that. Here it is. All right, that is awesome. Love that thing. I love it when it slingshots into letter G here. And then the guitar comes with. We didn't talk about right here. Basically, at letter G, it's everybody's in octaves. We're single octaves. The tenor and the trombone are prime unison through this whole passage here. Trumpet's up an octave, really pretty. Trumpet takes the pickup alone, kind of interesting. The 16th, but all of them. Typically, you would see everybody playing the 16th, but they had just the trumpet play it, which is really nice. It's lighter, it's not so, when you have everybody playing the same note, it's got more weight to it, or density. So here we are in octave. Well, we're not in octaves. These guys, the trumpet's pedaling a E over this bar, and the bone is pedaling an A, and then in the middle, we have the tenor doing his thing around the 7th, the 6th, the 5, 6, 7, floating around those notes. And then the same thing, well, no, not the same thing. This is different. The rhythm's the same, but the chord now goes to a sus5, a D, A minor over D. So the trombone's pedaling the D, and the trumpet and tenor are now in octaves, doing their thing in octaves. Okay? And I like this chord progression, how they play around with this chord progression. And then we're G sus. Here we are setting up the G sus, the B flat, to go back to the C, the last verse. And again, I love here the trumpet and the trombone are in octaves, except on these first set of notes on two. Ba ba da, they're in octaves, and then the trumpet plays the sus4 C, while the trombone plays the roots, and then the tenor is 1 3 and a 4 and then here they do an open again. They do like a drop 2 voicing here, and they basically do the same thing here, but just up a third. Basically doing, I believe it's the same thing, up a third if I'm not mistaken. Kind of looks like it. Yeah, up a third, and then they do the B flat chord just like they did the G chord. And then we're back to letter H, which is the last verse, and the horn parts are all identical. Okay, made it easy on the horn players. So we go through that, and what they end with this last verse. Here it is again, the same thing, down to the B flat, and then they go B flat, and they end on C. Nice open voicing. Well, here again, and I love the retard. This trombone is going to be this G right here. This trombone is the G right here. So it's the trumpet has the root. The tenor plays the sus4 and resolves to the third, and the trombone is in the middle. So the tenor sax is basically the bottom voice of this last 2 bars, and then it's a fermata. And then they let it ring with the rhythm section. Maybe there should be one over here, but so pretty. What a great tune, great horn arrangement. Wow. So there you have question 67 and 68 by the Chicago Transit Authority.